Okay guys, here we go today in our lesson. Today our lesson is to solve equations having like terms and parentheses. Basically we have three steps when solving these. The first step is going to be if the distributive property is in the step, you want to do that first. Second, you want to combine any like terms that might be in there. And then third, you're going to be left with a two-step equation that we worked on yesterday and last night. So that would be what you want to do third. Now, not all problems are going to have the distributive property. Not all problems are going to have combining like terms. So sometimes you only have to do one of those two parts. And so you'll need to do the ones that apply. Okay? So let's go over some examples. If you need to keep writing those down, then go ahead and pause it. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to the next screen. In our first example here, we have the distributive property. So that's the first thing that we want to do. So in order to solve this problem, what we are going to do first is distribute the 7 to both parts on the inside. So let me get on my pen. We're going to distribute the 7 to the 3 and the 7 to the x. Oop, a little delay there. 7 times 3 is 21 minus 7 times x is 7x equals negative 21. You got to rewrite it afterwards. You don't have to write the arrows, but you do need to rewrite the problem. Next, we are going to get rid of the 21. That is a positive 21. A plus 21 there. So the opposite of getting rid of a plus 21, remember we want to get to 0, so we want to subtract 21 from both sides. That's going to get rid of those, so we're left with our negative 7x. The negative stays in front of that 7x. This is a negative 21 minus 21. They're both negative, and when they're both the same sign, you're going to put them together, combine them, negative 42. Our last step then is divide both sides by negative 7. It's going to get rid of those, and you're going to be left with x equals negative 42 divided by negative 7 is positive 6. You're going to get x equals 6. That's the first example. If you need to pause, go ahead. Otherwise, I'm going to go on to my next example. For b here, we have 5x minus 2. 5x minus 2 times the quantity of x minus 1, and that equals 8. The first thing I have to do here is distribute. Now again, I'm going to change my pen color here so we can see this. We have a situation where we have a minus 2. I'm going to turn that into a plus negative 2 and a plus negative 1, kind of like I did in the warm-up problem the other day, today. Now when I distribute, I can distribute a negative 2 to both parts. That's going to give me 5x plus negative 2 times x is negative 2x plus negative 2 times negative 1 is a positive 2. And that equals 8. Now I have to do combine like term step. 5x plus negative 2x. Okay, different signs, we subtract them. That's 3x plus 2 equals 8. Now I have a two-step equation. I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. That's going to give me 3x equals 6. Then I'm going to divide by 3 to both sides. And that's going to give me x equals 2. Okay? So again, I do the distributive step first, make that a plus negative 2, so you distribute the negative 2, and you might want to circle them like I did, so you don't forget that. Second step is to combine like terms, and then you have your two-step equation you can solve. Okay, moving on to our next example. In our next example, I'm going to, again, I have a minus 3 for distributive step here. You got to recognize that distributive step. I'll make that plus negative 3. I'm going to distribute a negative 3 to both parts. So that's going to be 13 equals 2y plus negative 3y plus negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. Okay. Now to solve this, I'm going to add 12 to both sides because that's plus negative 12. I could do minus and negative 12, but remember, minus and negative is the same thing as plus positive. So I want to get that to 0. I just remember that, get it to 0. So add 12, that'll get that to 0. Add 12 to that side. And that is 25 equals 2y. Oh, you know what? I did not combine like terms. Well, let me show you that it is possible to do without combining like terms. That gives me that. Then I'm going to combine like terms. So I get 25 equals 2 plus negative 3 is negative 1y. All right, and then I'm going to divide by negative 1. Now, typically I like to combine like terms first, although in this case you can see it didn't matter as long as I do the same thing to both sides. It worked out well because my combining like terms I did not use until they would be the last step with the y's. But if I had two constants in there, I would want to combine those first. Otherwise I'm adding a lot of work for myself. Then to finish this, I get 25 divided by -1, which is -25, equals y. Excuse me. And that's what I get. I would have gotten the same thing if I had my -1 up here. So if I were to bring my -1 up there and then subtract 12, I would end up with the same idea, same answer. Okay, and which is the way I'd like you to go with typically. Since it's harder for me to erase, I'm going to stay with that. Okay? All right, I got one more example, and then we are done. So if you need to pause, go ahead and pause, but here's your next example. All right, it's a long one. It's a word problem. A bookstore spent $241 to send a group of students to a competition. Each student who won was given a $5 gift card and a bookmark worth $2. So we have a $5 gift card and then a bookmark that cost $2. Okay, we have 241 spent. In that 241, 45 was for a staff member who accompanied the students. How many students won the prize? Write and solve an equation, okay? So what I need to look at is I got my total amount. My total amount is 241. That is my total amount. Now what do I have in here? What are my parts? Well, 45, that's for a staff member. That's one. That's a constant. That is not changing. So that's my plus 45. That is for my staff member. That's $45. There it is. Okay? Now it says 241 is the total amount. That's for all the students to go, so not per student. So what do we have per student? We have two things per student. We have $5 gift card for each student, and we have $2. So there's really kind of two ways of writing this. I could think of how many students, that's my variable. So my students is going to be my variable. So I could think of, I'm multiplying my students by 5 and 2, and I could write distributive, or a little easier would be to think about, okay, $5 per student, that's 5x, student is my variable, plus $2 per student. They're both x's because I have the same number of students. They're each getting them. Now, I do not want to combine them. Some of you might say, well, 5 and 2 is 7, so it's $7 per kid, which is great that you're doing that. However, when you write your equation, you must use the numbers given to you in the equation. 7 is not in my paragraph there, so you can't do it, although that is going to be the first thing you're going to do. So let me scroll down and now solve it. 5 plus 2 is 7x plus 45, and that equals 241. Subtract 45 from both sides, and you get 7x equals 196. Divide both sides by 7, and you get x equals 28. So my final answer is 28 students. That's how many students are going on the trip. Okay, and this is the equation that you need to write, and we're really going to work on that. And remember, you must use the numbers from the problem. You cannot use any other numbers. And you always want that to equal the total amount spent. Okay? There's our lesson for tonight. Have a wonderful night, and I will see you guys all tomorrow.